Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today I'm coming at you with a bit of a news update for The Division Heartland. We don't have anything huge to cover, but it is interesting nonetheless, and you all know I've got you covered with the latest details on Heartland. So I did a poll yesterday asking if people wanted to see this update, even though it was a bit smaller, and a majority of you said yes, so thank you very much for participating and engaging in that. And so, with all that said, I won't take up too much of your time, so let's jump right in. And I put some timestamps down below as I wanted to mix in a few other small things we've seen lately. Let's go. First off, the main update to cover here is that the game has received yet another round of official ratings, this one probably on the same scope and scale as the ESRB ratings we talked about previously. If anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, despite us not having much official word or information on Heartland lately, the game has begun, and this has been happening for a few months by now, receiving official ratings around the world. Those are the age labels that you see on physical copies of games, marketing trailers, etc., stuff like M for mature, E for everyone, all of that. And the reason why this is significant is that while these do not indicate an imminent release for a game, they do indicate that it's nearing a release point, because obviously whatever product is being rated by these boards is a fairly complete representation of the final product. So it's been encouraging to see these ratings continue to come in. First, it started with some individual countries. I believe Korea and Brazil were first. Then we got word that the game had its ESRB rating, which is the rating system used here in the States and in greater North America. But as I said, this latest one kind of matches that in terms of significance, I feel, because this just came out a few days back when we were all caught up in the season 11 delay and all of that. The Division Heartland has now been rated by PEGI, which is the rating system used in the entirety of the EU, as well as a few other selective European countries. So that's a decently big deal in and of itself. I want to quickly jump over to their website where it gives some additional details, and I will leave a link to this in the description below so that you can check it out for yourself. Alright, so here we are on PEGI's site, and as you can see, Tom Clancy's The Division Heartland from Ubisoft EMEA. Now, the majority of the information it gives here is stuff that we've either heard before, or it's kind of a mix-up of stuff we've heard before, but there are some details in here that I don't think I've seen anywhere else, so I do want to cover it, and I'll be curious to hear your guys' thoughts. So it says, survival action shooter game set in the fictional rural city of Silver Creek, in which players take on the roles of a group of agents tasked with uncovering a mystery. And then over here on the right side, you can see release dates and platforms. It says release date, but what that date actually is when this was entered into PEGI's database here. So obviously a few days ago on February 2nd was when it was added for PC, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Stadia, Luna, and Xbox Series X and S. So this is obviously a bit out of whack. It needs to be tuned because Stadia is going away and the Xbox One isn't on there, which we know is a confirmed platform that the game is coming to. So that's not entirely accurate, but all of the rest of the stuff is there, and obviously it was added just a few days ago. But if we click the more info here, this is where I want to go into some of those details. So obviously advice for consumers there, just talking about what's in the game. Brief outline, we already covered that. I'll read the content-specific issues, but then really under the other issues is what I want to cover. So violence during gameplay features characters being shot or hit with explosives. Impacts from gunshots result in a reduction of health, with the character dying once their health runs out, while explosions result in immediate death. However, there is no sight of blood and very little sight of damage during gameplay. The game's cutscenes feature more realistic violence, including a tied-up male character being questioned and then hit using a hammer with blood spray. Other characters are forced to dig their own graves before being shot. There is also use of strong language with the words there. So that's interesting. Again, we've heard some of this stuff before, similar to what was in the ESRB rating, but always interesting to get a new perspective on that. But then down under the under issues, it says, and I'll read this game offers players the opportunity to purchase in-game items in the form of a battle pass, cosmetic items, gameplay consumables, time savers, and other exclusive content which some parents or carers may want to be aware of. And that just talks about all the risks there. So the majority of that, I would say, is pretty standard for a free-to-play game and pretty expected. The one thing that does kind of make me raise an eyebrow is the fact that they mention time savers here. Those are not mine, and I think a lot of people's most favorite thing to be in games, especially when we know there's going to be PvP in this game and some sort of competitive aspect. If you can purchase things that boost your progression or save you time in other areas and can potentially give you an edge in said PvP combat, that's not the best, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm not going to make a full judgment until we actually know what it is in the game. They could just say that label, but it actually means something entirely different in the game. So I'm not going to draw any conclusions, but that does make me raise an eyebrow, and I am definitely going to be watching out for what that might be when the game does release. So there you have it. Heartland's got its PEGI rating. Again, that doesn't mean that we should expect to see something imminently, but it is yet another step closer we now are to the game's eventual release. And another piece of evidence to hopefully wake up some of the people who still think this game is the next day before. Only other thing I wanted to quickly touch on is an elaboration on something something I mentioned in a recent video, and that was in my February news preview breakdown I did, which many of you checked out. I had a segment on Heartland where I briefly mentioned that Red Storm had been doing some Division-y, Heartland-y things on their social media. It wasn't really big enough to spotlight in there, but I figured since we're already doing this news update, might as well throw it in. And so, since I incessantly scanned the internet for Heartland news to report to you all, I noticed pretty quickly when Red Storm changed their Twitter banner recently. I'll put a picture of the new one up on screen. Previously, it had been one that had been a picture of Assassin's Creed, Splinter Cell, and Heartland. I believe it was kind of like a 3-pane image, but now, as you can see, we've got ourselves a beautiful full Heartland image. Now, before anyone says anything, I'm not saying this means, oh my god, the game's coming out tomorrow, but companies and social media accounts don't just go and change these things on a whim. And some of you might recall, if you've been around for a while, that it was Red Storm changing their banner way back in 2020 that first gave us an indication that they might be working on a new Division project back when they switched it from whatever it had been to a rogue symbol. So as I said, this doesn't indicate anything imminent, but along with the fact that they've been making a few more Division-related posts lately than normal, I think all of this news continues to point to the fact that we're inching closer to some more official news and hopefully the release of the game. I know we've been saying that for a long time. I know everybody is exhausted from waiting at this point. I know it's rough, but believe me, I think when we're finally out on the other side and the game is released, we're all just going to be overjoyed that it's finally in our hands. Thank you all so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe with notifications on so you can be updated every time I upload. Let me know your thoughts on this news update for the Division Heartland, guys. What are your thoughts on the PEGI rating breakdown, especially some of those details like the time saver stuff? Doesn't sound great, but I'd be curious if anybody has any insight there. And what are you thinking about Red Storm's social media? Is it indicative of anything? Whatever your thoughts are on those points or anything else we discussed, I will as always be super curious to read them. I think I said in my 2023 news preview breakdown video that I was somewhat expecting we might get a Heartland news update from Ubisoft by the end of February. This stuff that we covered today certainly doesn't hurt the chances of that. And as I said before, while it's impossible to truly predict anything with the game at this point, all I know is I'm hyped for when we finally do get to learn more, and you can all rest easy knowing that the moment we hear something, I'll have you covered right here on the channel. That's going to do it for me today, though, everybody. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and until the next one, guys, RogueGold out.